Hello, everyone, and welcome to week one of our National Month of Leadership. Who am I as a leader? I'm grateful you've chosen to spend that time here today, whether you're joining us live, in between classes, rehearsals, or showing up simply because you care about your growth as a leader. A little bit about our National Month of Leadership. It is in the month of February. It's a dedicated time for brothers, both active and alumni, to pause, reflect, and invest in their own leadership journey. Leadership is not something that we turn on only when we hold a title, but it's about how we show up for one another, how we serve our bands and chapters, and how we carry our values into our communities. The month exists because leadership development does not happen by accident. It happens through reflection, conversation, shared learning, and most importantly, practice. When brothers grow as leaders, our chapters become stronger, our service becomes more meaningful, and our impact lasts far beyond our time as students. This week is going to be centering on individual leadership and self-awareness. Before we can lead with others, before we can lead others well, we have to understand who we are, what we value, and how our personal experiences shape the way that we lead. And so here's a quick rundown of how this presentation is going to be structured today. First and foremost, if you are able to join our Mentimeter, look at the code at the top, joinmenti.com, use the code. It'll be on all the slides. So even if you join us late, you are more than welcome to join our code. We're going to be asking you some questions, and we invite you to participate in the discussion as well. We can't do it, as in person, but okay. Zoom and Menti is our best bet.
I'm going to just leave this one. I'm going to do another photo.
Thank you.
Please continue.
So next, we have leadership. We're going to talk about our 4 principles. We're going to talk about how you can start your own journey. And then last but not least, we are going to talk about why Kappa Kappa Psi cares about the things we're discussing today. If I have not had the pleasure of meeting you, my name is Kadeem Sabari. I currently serve as one of the Southwest District Governors, and I serve as one of the Founder Circle speakers as well. I am a life member of the Zeta Chi chapter at the University of South Carolina. Professionally, I am the Dallas-Fort Worth Regional Manager of Admissions at Texas State University. That is a very long title, and I wish it was shorter. So some ways to kind of get to know me a little bit more. We're going to peel back some of those curtains. I am someone who's very process-oriented, so I am slightly resistant to change, especially when it's changes that I don't make myself, and when those changes affect my way of doing things or my overall flow. And I like to know the why behind those changes, because if it doesn't make sense as to why we're making this change, I'm going to be slightly irked about it, hence why I'm resistant to change. But I also understand I have a job to do and I have to honor my commitments, so I'm going to get things done regardless. Next, a little bit about me, self-advocacy. Not one of my strongest suits. I normally don't speak up for myself as often as I should, especially if I feel uncomfortable in a situation or if I feel as though what I'm about to say will not change the outcome. So it's something that I'm actively working on. And it doesn't mean I never do it, but I know it's something that it takes me a little longer than it probably should to actually do for myself. And then on a more unserious level, Princess Peach is my main character, and she has been since 1998. Mario Party was the first video game I've ever owned, and I've just gravitated towards her. I don't know if it was the dress, if it was the pink. She was the only woman in the game. I just don't know. But me and Princess Peach, we go way back. She's always the character I pick for baseball, tennis, soccer, Mario Kart, Smash Brothers. She's me, I am her, and we just have a lovely relationship. So enough about me. I'm going to pass it over to my co-presenter so he can introduce himself as well.
Hey everybody, my name is Darin Martin and I use the he series pronouns. I'm a life member of the new chapter at the University of Michigan and currently work at Northeastern University in Boston, where I serve as the Associate Director of Program Operations, working with student organizations and helping to support programming and events on campus. So a little bit about me. One thing, self-reflection wise, I continue to reflect on the fact that work is not life, and I keep reminding myself that there's more to life than just sitting at work. I'm a bit of a workaholic as I sit in my office here tonight for the presentation, but I'm continuing to reflect on that and see what that means for me moving forward. I am what I consider an ambivert, so introverted, extroverted, I'm right there in the middle. I enjoy engaging with people and everything, but I also need that alone time sitting just to recharge. So very much right in the middle there. And then fun fact, I have a picture of a jug here. In undergrad, I was in an American roots music class, and we toured throughout the Mississippi Delta, playing in a jug band. So I got to be the jug player playing there, and I think that's very reflective of who I am as a person. The jug is really that bass line, keeping rhythm across the bass, and I think that's where how I choose to live out day to day is being in the behind the scenes, helping keep things flowing. Excited to be here with you today.
Thank you for being the jug that held this presentation together. So we're going to dive right into it. We're going to talk about what leadership is and what leadership is not. And we're actually going to start with what leadership is not. And we're actually also going to start with you all. So if you haven't joined our Mentimeter presentation, because we're going to ask you some questions, and starting with what is leadership not? Please keep it as brief as you can, because Mentimeter will not allow you to write novels, unfortunately. So just, give us some stuff in the chat. Give us some talking things. Okay. Okay, we're adding this. Selfishness, I see you twice. Telling others what to do. Embarrassment, control. I love how I say keeping concise. And where does on it today? Okay, we're seeing some themes here, telling people what to do, telling others what to do. Rude, yes. Leadership is not rude. Don't be rude to people. Bossy. Distracting the group from common goals. I think that is definitely a key one here. Arrogant. Having an ego, okay. Cruel. But we're getting all the things today. I love that. Yes, leadership is not the authority to do whatever you want. Let's give some snaps to yourself for putting that one in there. Belittling, love that. We are just rapid firing today. I love this energy. Serving yourself and not the team. Also, if you see me looking to the left, it's because I have my presentation here. So it's not that I'm ignoring y'all, I promise. I can only look one way this one time. Okay, great. So we got some good stuff in here. We got some good stuff. We got some repeat things such as selfishness, telling others what to do. We're going to touch on some of those later on. A title, yes, amen to that. So we're going to touch on some of these in our presentation. We're actually going to start by giving some examples of what leadership is not and how sometimes that people get confused when we're looking at these things. The first one we're going to talk about is management. So management is your typical vertical exercise of authority. You think, supervisor to a team member, you have section leader to section member, chapter president to chapter member. Is a very strict structure. Usually you find a lot of these in a little bit more formal settings. Again, organizational charts where you can see somebody is in charge of other people. And sometimes people will think once you get that management title, once you're deemed a section leader or a director or something that gives you some type of supervisory power, that innately makes you a leader. And that is not the case, unfortunately. It's a situation to where you are solely in that position due to your title. And so when you are going out for leadership roles and people are asking you, well, what makes you a great leader? If your answer is, well, because I manage people, I supervise people, that is... we need a little bit more than that. You can have leadership moments within management, but management at its heart is not necessarily being a leader. For instance, I manage a team of 2 people now with my job. I wouldn't call myself being the leader of them. I just manage them. I'm here to make sure that they do their job, and hopefully they do their job well. Otherwise, I would get fired and I do like my job. So again, management in itself, not necessarily leadership, but you can have leadership moments within management.
Yeah. Next thing that leadership is not is group work. Now, this isn't necessarily leadership can't exist within group work, but group work really implies this horizontal exercise of authority where individuals within the group are all exercising their own influence over each other. So when you think a group of study buddies, like you're studying for an exam or you're studying for your class, or members of your section that are playing together, each person's really contributing towards that shared effort or goal, and decisions are often made collectively. So responsibilities spread across the group. The group you are in a group, you're often seeking guidance or advice and support from your members. So thinking in that context of kind of you're rowing the boat together. Everyone's rowing towards the same goal and what that end goal may be. Decisions are very much left to the group. So don't get me wrong, this isn't saying that group work can't really contain elements of leadership, as people may take ownership of the direction or accountability in the group. But at its core, group work is truly shared setting and does not equate necessarily to leadership.
And the last one we kind of touched on a little bit in some of your responses, and that is this exercise of power. So again, we are back with the vertical exercise of authority. So again, someone who's supervising or someone who's in charge of a group of people, and what you're doing to get the people that you're supervising to actually generate that action that you're looking for is you're using coercion through fear. So you're either giving them threats, you're promising them rewards for their compliance, and in some situations, you are using the team members against each other to keep themselves in line for your own personal use. And so think of like, and for instance, chapter examples, hazing. So when you were going through a chapter member, as you were going through a new membership candidate process, you may have been hazed potentially. And so some people will take that experience. And so if they get in that position of power, they will do unto others what was done to them because they think that's what leaders do. And that's just not the case. And that's not something we should be doing, especially not within this organization, because risk management is a thing. So you want to make sure that when you are going through your leadership journey, or when you're looking at what examples of what you don't want to be, as we mentioned, some of these are a little bit more obvious to some people, such as threatening people to get them to do what you want. That's a little bit more obvious to some people, but Darin mentioned group work, or earlier we talked about management. Sometimes people can blur those lines a little bit. So we want to make sure that at its core, those things are not what we would consider leadership. And then lastly, I'm going to leave you with this, is that it's never really been about the positions or the titles or where you fall in any type of hierarchy. So it's important to remember that no matter what stage you're at in your life, or no matter what positions that you hold or what jobs that you get, that leadership in itself has never really been about the title.
All right, so we want to hear from you one more time. So we're going to go back to the Mentimeter here. And this time, what is leadership? What do you see as leadership? Again, be concise with your answers, as it won't give you unlimited characters here, but what are we hearing or thinking? So guiding, definitely. Inspiration, service, like the service, definitely one of the main components of the founder circle is that servant leadership approach. Leading by examples, nice. Role model, definitely. Some kindness, mutual respect. Yeah, sharing that empathy with others as you engage with them from your leadership position or not. Finding opportunities to help build others, awesome. Confidence, we will talk about that a little bit later in our presentation too. So perfect segue into that soon. Others flourish, bringing people together. Yeah, awesome. Transparency for sure. What was that, Kadeem?
It's almost as if y'all were watching us put this together. You know, if you are the FBI, please stay away from my home. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, Michelle. Shout out to Michelle. We love Michelle Banner. Shout out to her.
I like the looking at this, the showing genuine care and compassion for the people you lead, and like being or bringing people together. That really leads into our next thought of this quote we want to share from John C. Maxwell, that leadership is about one life influencing another. So as we think about you as an individual, you are that one life, and how you interact with people and help to shape the people around you, that is the essence of leadership. And as we explore that one life, thinking who are you and who are you as an individual is really the key themes we're trying to get at through this presentation. So with that, I want to jump into our next session or section, really diving into who you are as an individual. And I'll turn it back to Kadeem.
So we're going to use our friend Harry Kramer here. So in his book, From Values to Action, the 4 Principles of Value-Based Leadership, Harry really, let me call him by his last name. I don't know him personally. Kramer landed on these 4 fundamental principles of value-based leadership: self-reflection, balance and perspective, true self-confidence, and genuine humility. And so part of the reason why he was able to land on these four principles is because that these values can be applied by anybody, no matter who you are. And so, as we said in week one, this is going to be about your individual journey. And it's a great place for people who have never really thought about their individual leadership journey and who they are. And so, no matter what position you are in your life, you can start applying these four principles to how you show up every day. You don't need to gain certain professional skills. You don't need to read all these different books to start this process. These are things that you can start applying to who you are, how you show up in the world, and how you show up for others every day. And especially when you do get in a leadership position, how you show up for that team that you're guiding and leading throughout, and hopefully inspiring to be better people and be a better version of themselves. And so we're going to start with that first one being self-reflection.
Yeah. So thinking about self-reflection, it's really the ability to truly know oneself and your identity and what matters most to you. So we'll dive further into some exercises later on in the presentation about how to practice that self-reflection as it relates to your values. But we wanted to really set the stage with this as part of Kramer's principles as we start here. Self-reflection itself is hard. It is something that a lot of people can often avoid for a variety of reasons. You may feel shame or guilt for past situations, and that can act as a blocker to really begin the process of self-reflection, or you may truly don't know where to start. So it's different for everybody, but every journey really starts with that first step. So for me, I intentionally take time at night to really think through the day, particularly how I felt I showed up that day. Now, of course, I don't do this every night. I think that's a great practice to get into and something I'm striving towards. But on days that I really feel strongly, whether that was a strong frustration or an excitement of something that happened, or days where I really felt like it just seemed to be a blur and I didn't really remember feeling any type of way, just kind of made it one step after the other to get through the day. I think those are the times to really take and have that self-reflective moment, as it helps to really ground yourself. And it forces myself to take that moment and think about the why. Why do I feel that way? Why did I show up in that way? And really work to identify what truly matters so that I can use that as I approve from the next day in whatever the next situation may be. And then the other component is like through actively practicing self-reflection, you can gain a really deep sense of yourself and who you are. So you can begin to learn more about what drives you, both like the conscious actions of how you are physically showing up. And for me personally, I think what influences more of my unconscious thoughts, processes with the patterns that may exist, and that can drive certain behaviors. So how you engage with people and the rest of the world around you is important outcomes that can come from practicing this self-reflection.
And then we move into this balance and perspective. And so, simple definition, this is the ability to see situations from multiple points of view with an open mind to gain a more holistic understanding. We all know it's some people say it's common sense, but we're all starting from somewhere. Our view of life and how we walk through life is shaped based on our own personal experiences. Everyone processes things differently, and that no two people are alike. So if you ever find yourself with that privilege and the ability to make decisions for others, you want to make sure that you actually take that time to consider other people. Because when you are making decisions that impact more than just yourself, that is a lot of power that you hold in your hands. And so you want to make sure that you actually hear these people out, get to know what they're thinking, because it helps you understand the broader impact of what you're about to do. And this tends to be brushed off a lot by a lot of people, and it could be for a variety of reasons. You have a time crunch, or you think it may just be unnecessary. You want to make sure that you are actually taking the time to hear people out and you're considering their points of view. Because again, when it's more than just you. It's more than just you in this organization. It's more than just you in your chapters. It's more than just you in your band program, or even in your study group. It's more than just you. There's people that we interact with every day. My dad used to always tell me that the quickest path is always a straight line. However, it's not always about being right. People will always appreciate how you made them feel, and they will also remember how you made them feel more than what you said to them. And so even in moments of frustration where you know that the answer that you have is the correct answer, people will always appreciate the fact that you took the time to hear them out. I deal with this a lot at work because admissions is very customer service based. You had getting into college, applying to college, very stressful for the students themselves and the parents. And sometimes people just don't know what our policies are. And so they get frustrated. They call me. I'm here to just hear them out and be like, hey, this was a frustration, and kind of see where they're coming from, so how I can help de-escalate the situation. And a lot of times they end up much appreciative for that. And we end up having a good conversation because we start talking about other things and like what other schools they may be interested in. Because my job is not just about getting into Texas State, but it's also just trying to help students get into college in general and recognizing that my school may not be the best one for them. And so again, when you are taking the time to hear people out and seeing situations from multiple points of view to gain that better understanding is going to be super important for how you walk through life. I know a lot of us are currently students and you have so much more life to give. And so if you haven't started thinking about this now, this is a great time to start thinking about how you can best hear people out and see their perspective.
Yeah. So as we think about self-reflection and then figuring out what that balance and your perspectives are, it really can help lead towards true self-confidence. So, someone put in the Mentimeter there about what is leadership, the confidence component, and confidence truly is like seeing and accepting yourself for exactly who you are, which in talking about how much of a challenge self-reflection can be when defining your values to inform your leadership style with confidence, that can truly be much harder. So with imposter syndrome phenomenon, stepping into your self-confidence can be very difficult. And that likely will be an ongoing task as we try to navigate for the rest of our lives to continue working towards that true self-confidence. Today alone, I had the opportunity to present to the whole division of student life here at Northeastern about how our office has really shifted our approaches into supporting student organizations through different technology systems and different support structures. And for context, Northeastern, we have 13 different campuses ranging from London to Vancouver to Oakland and then Boston, where I'm at. And representatives from across student life were on this call. So as I was preparing to present to the people in the room and the people virtually, I had to continually remind myself that I'm speaking to these staffs about something that I am, quote unquote, the expert in. And regardless if I mess up or what I have to say doesn't necessarily resonate with the operations on their specific campus, that is okay. And that I belonged in that space, having that confidence to be able to stand up in front of them and present. Through that self-reflection, I was able to really recognize what my strengths and weaknesses were. As I prepared to present, I truly allowed myself to lean into the strengths that I knew I could use when presenting and feel confident in that approach. And through understanding my strengths and weaknesses, you can really build that confidence of knowing what to lean into, what maybe to avoid in any given situation. I think it's important really to stress the focusing on both your strengths and your weaknesses in that, as it's very important to note as when you fail to really recognize your shortcomings, you can fall into this trap of a fake persona or this false confidence. And a person that is attempting to portray that is someone who has all the answers, and that can lead to inauthenticity and closing yourself off from other ideas or thoughts that you want as you try to protect that false identity that you create. So you can come across as maybe bragging or insincere. And it's important as we think about true self-confidence to be genuine in that and utilize the values that we'll talk about a little later on here in defining what that confidence means for you.
And then touching on the last principle of Kramer is that genuine humility. Depending on who you are and where you grew up from, you may have heard the phrase somebody's acting brand new or somebody's a sellout, because when people get into a certain position, they sometimes tend to forget that they were once somebody who was in a position that may not have been as lucrative or as fruitful. And so depending on where you are and where you grew up, different phrases, brand new, sellout, those are the ones that I grew up with, not to show my age here. But those are just different phrases to all mean the same thing. Is that sometimes as we climb up, people forget where they came from. And so having genuine humility is just realizing who you are and where you come from and using this understanding of your own personal story to then appreciate the value of each person that you come into contact with. Now, this is not to say that they have to be somebody that you're necessarily supervising or somebody that you're leading. This can be anybody off the street, anybody random that you may have a conversation with. You just really understand that everyone has a story. Everyone has a journey that they've come on. And sometimes you may not know these things because, like you said, you never judge a book by its cover is a common phrase that a lot of people know of. And so when you start to recognize and kind of dive into your own personal story and realize how much you may have had to overcome to get to where you are, you start to then take a little bit more time to learn more about other people. And so, again, as you start climbing up your own personal ladder, whether it's through your career, whether it's through personal triumphs like getting a home or getting a new car or getting assistant director or director level role, executive director, CEO, whatever you want to call it, depending on the field that you're in, because everyone's job field has all these different titles to all essentially say the same thing. But no matter how far you climb up, you want to stay grounded as you climb. And on a different note of climbing up that ladder, when you've worked hard at something, people are going to compliment you. People are going to give you praise. And it's important that you accept the compliments as they come because, again, you've worked super hard at the things that you've accomplished, the things you've done for yourself. So accept those compliments as they happen. What you don't want to do, however, is you don't want to jump into this persona or jump into this habit of brushing off compliments because you know people are going to then give you more. It's a very slippery slope. There's a tightrope you have to, balance on. But stay grounded. Accept the praise for what it is because you recognize that you've worked hard, but don't go fishing for more. Because I'm sure we all can think about somebody who does that and how much that irks you. So as you're going through your own leadership journey, as you're going through your own professional and personal life and your own accomplishments, accept the praise, but don't go begging for more, if that makes sense. Amen.
Hey, as we transition now, this last section here, we really want to help you all leave with an activity of how you can really start your leadership journey. So I'm not sure if folks have been following along with social media, but we've been posting some things. Shout out to Bong for his great graphic design work in terms of creating these graphics, but want to think through values and how you determine what your values are. I think there are many different ways values can show up. So part of our social media campaign leading into this week was asking you to think through those values in a few different categories or areas. It's important to reference here that we're not saying all of your values need to sit within any of these one buckets that we're going to talk through in a second, but that you can have values anywhere. You may not resonate with the words that show up on these images, and that's perfectly okay. We want you to really be able to self-reflect and determine what your values are on your own, whether that's the words here or separate. So 4 different graphics. First one is around core values. So it has some of the values that can really shape the core of who an individual is, whether that be respect, courage, trust, humility, offers different opportunities for you to engage on what is your core. The next side of things looks at the leadership skills and behaviors that you may possess. So thinking about collaboration or adaptability. I know that one of the main values that I have learned to develop throughout the past couple of years here is that adaptability. Things are constantly changing and wanting to stay adaptable and thinking on your toes to really stay in that. So one of those values definitely speaks to me. But otherwise, there's facilitation, strategic thinking, vision setting, different values that you may have, or things to really jumpstart your thinking of what your values may end up being. Next one is around mindset. So those internal drivers, not necessarily the external facing, but what keeps your mind going. So curiosity, that ownership of the work that you have. Openness to change is another value that you may share. So thinking through those components. And the final one is around service and community-oriented traits. These all really align with the values Kappa Kappa Psi has. And wanting you all to see different ways that this can work towards your betterment as you think through what your values can be. So we ask that as a task, and not expecting people to really think through this all on this call, as it takes time to really reflect properly, but thinking through how you can determine what your values are. Look at those graphics, think of other options of what words, what values do you truly hold as an individual, and kind of kickstart your leadership journey there. So you may circle any of the values on there, any words that you think through what those are, and then think through one way that you can lead more intentionally using them. We're going to send around a graphic or a worksheet that you can utilize as you continue this self-reflection journey, and we encourage you to share that with others in your chapters, others that you may engage with, to really help think, how do your values shape who you are? By understanding yourself, the main purpose of this workshop in particular, and the first level of the founder circle, is you as the individual leader. So who are you? What values do you share? And how do you utilize those values as you move forward? So that will be the homework we leave you all with. And we'll be sure to send out that worksheet to you all as well. But that is the main thing of kickstarting that journey for yourself. I'll
Yes.
turn it back over.
Shout out to the people working in education, giving out homework. And I want to add on to that just ever so briefly, because this was a lot of information that we just kind of talked about, especially if this is something you've never thought about for your own individual journey. And so I was on Instagram, and one of my favorite dietitians that I follow, she's a lovely dietitian and content creator. She was talking about when you're starting a new healthy lifestyle journey. And for some reason, that resonated with me and how this applies to this workshop, because we mentioned that some things like self-reflection, like those things are hard. Facing those uncomfortable truths about yourself that you're going to work towards changing. It's a journey. It takes a lot of practice. And one of the quotes that she said was, "You're not supposed to suffer, but you are supposed to work." Because we live in an age of instant gratification. And so we're so used to things coming to us so quickly. I mean, we can Google, we have all kinds of ways to get information so quickly. But when it comes to that internal work, and these are things that take, years, months, depending on what your goal is and what you're trying to do. And especially as you get older, you enter different phases of your life. And so I just wanted to add that in there, that as you start your journey, it may get uncomfortable. You may have to sit with yourself and be like, oh, I was really doing this. Let me get my life together. But you're not supposed to suffer through this journey. If you feel like you're truly suffering, definitely reach out to some other people, talk to some people, have them see what you're doing, tell them and share what you're doing, because they may be able to help you either change your perspective or change your mindset. This is not supposed to be an exercise or a journey where you are constantly talking negatively about yourself. So again, you are going to have to put in some work and practice, but you're not supposed to suffer through this journey. So I just wanted to add that in there before we moved on to the next section. And shout out to, I cannot remember her name right now, but shout out to her for giving me that inspiration to say that today. Anywho, so why do we as Kappa Kappa Psi, why does this organization care about any of the stuff that we have talked about so far, or any of the things that we're going to be talking about later on in our National Month of Leadership? So before we give you some quick tidbits at the end, let's hear from you all, members of this organization or friends of members in the organization, if we have some friends in the program here today. Why does KKSI care about anything within the National Month of Leadership? Again, you have, I think, 200 characters with the Mentimeter, so you can't type a whole novel, but you can give us some quick words. Yes, we want to build up future leaders. We sure do. We are leaders, yes. Growing our brothers will grow our chapters, yep. Sure will. We are the next generation. We surely are. We care because we love, okay. The rest does not happen without leadership as one of our core pillars. We want to leave the organization better than we found it. Oh, I forgot this one. Band members look to us because you never know who's watching you at any given moment. Better brothers equals better bands. We are leaders of our organization. We serve the bands and we want to guide people, even ones who don't want to join our organization. That is very key.
Yeah.
Don't take it as a personal attack if someone does not want to join KK Psi. As servant leaders, it is our job to inspire the future. Okay, obligations. Yes, we are always wearing our letters in quotations because, again, people are always looking to you. They may not know anything about you, but they may know you're a brother of KK Psi, so don't go out here acting foolish. We need leaders now more than ever. Let me actually slow down when I'm trying to read these results on the internet. Leadership skills learned here inspire future career leaders too. Yes, there are so many different transferable skills that you can get from being invested in your own leadership journey through KK Psi. So again, if you've never done this before, if you've never thought about your own leadership journey, it is definitely very helpful. And speaking of career paths, I was thinking about getting out of admissions at one point in my career, and I had never worked in fraternity sorority life, but through my volunteer experience with KK Psi, I got an interview. The man was very impressed with all the experience that I had and how much I knew about fraternal organizations and sorority organizations and Greek life in general. And all of that knowledge was knowledge gained through KK Psi. So you never know where these organizations can take you. So if you haven't started investing, invest now like you are today. Okay, we got some KKs, we got Psis. Strong leadership can help us serve our bands better. And the better our leadership, the better we can serve others. Yes, because it is a journey. It takes practice. Thank y'all so much for contributing to today's conversation. Like I said, if you are the FBI, please make sure you stay away from my house because I feel like some of y'all were watching us put this together. And so we have two quick tidbits here about why, as an organization, we would care about something like this. And we've touched on this a little bit before, but learning is a lifelong commitment. As an organization, we care because we understand that leadership development, as we said, is something that's not accidental. You really do have to be intentional about what you allow to influence you and the choices that you make. Because you never know what type of influence something has on you. And this is not to say you have to be perfect or you have to always have a fine-tooth comb through everything that you're doing. We don't want you to overanalyze every step that you take. However, you do need to start being intentional. And as you are starting to make new decisions, sorry, someone put, why does Kadeem talk so much with his hands? I do. I'm not going to apologize for who I am, but I do talk a lot with my hands. If you've seen me in real life, you know this is a thing. So back to what I was saying. You have to be intentional about those choices that you're making and the influences you have around you. That's not to say you can't make mistakes. There are going to be times where you do make mistakes. As Hannah Montana says, nobody's perfect. But when you know better, you do better. So as we go through these leadership journeys, as you go through your own leadership journey, assess, what things are working, talk to people, ask them how you may be performing when you are in a leadership role, get genuine feedback and really accept it for what it is, because sometimes we may be doing things that we may not recognize ourselves. And again, when you know better, you do better. And then lastly, service to the college and university bands is more than just what happens on the band field, which so many of y'all eloquently put as we asked y'all to give us some suggestions. As an organization, we care about developing the leaders of tomorrow. Not everyone has access to leadership classes. Not everyone has access to these resources or even these own networks. Because again, everyone comes through life differently. Everyone has their own paths, and not all institutions are created equally. Not all high schools are created equally. And so again, some people may just have never had access to these opportunities before. And so as an organization, we are doing our best and we are trying to evolve with the times and what the needs of our students are to enrich the lives of you all by bringing these opportunities to you and doing our part in building a better world. And I said students, let me not forget there are alums in the room as well. Let me remember that too, because I am also one of those, an alum as well. So we're bringing opportunities to everyone to really do our part into building that better world. So again, as these opportunities arise, definitely take some time to invest in them and try to carve out some time in your calendar. Darren, do you have anything you want to add? Because I just kind of was yapping a little bit.
You said it all. You said it well. Someone's laughing at me, laughing at you. So, here we are.
Mentimeter, once we move off the slide, I don't think we should be able to see the comments because I do talk with my hands and life moves on.
All right, so as we wrap up the formal part of the presentation here, we really want to talk about how we can ground what we've talked through today in the Founder Circle. So this is part of the Founder Circle speaker series for our National Month of Leadership. And this first circle is really grounded in the Founder Circle itself is grounded in the social change model. So emphasizing the need to understand yourself, which was the main topic of today, and others as we work towards a shared community change. So the social change model was created in 1993 by the Higher Ed Research Institute at UCLA. And the basis of the social change model is really rooted in the 7 C's, or 7 values that all happen to start with the letter C. The areas that apply to the individual level, which is this first level of the founder circle here, are consciousness of self, which is like an awareness of your beliefs, of your attitudes, your values, really thinking through that self-reflective components, and how we utilize that to motivate each other to take action. Second being congruence, which is thinking, that feeling of behaving with consistency, genuine authenticity, and honesty as we approach the work of being a leader or showing up as a leader. And then lastly, commitment. So that energy that we put in that drives the overall collective effort of improving the world around us. That commitment, it applies our passions, the intensity we show up to the world, and it also counts for duration. So it's not just the short haul. This is leadership is a long-term commitment as we work to improve not only those we interact with, but broader the community, as we will talk through in future presentations within the Founder Circle series here.
And so before we get to the thanks, do you have any questions for us? You should be able to type questions in here, unless I botched up this last Mentimeter slide. So if you can't ask questions in here, just type them in the chat and we will adjust that later. Oh, okay, great, it works. Darin, how are you?
I am happy to be here. I'm tired. Been a long day, but it's an exciting day, and excited to be here with you all tonight.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Oh, my bad. Hold on. Oh God. What is your biggest fear when it comes to leadership? Oh, mm, one of my biggest fears, I guess, when it comes to leadership is, if I had to say something on the spot like I am right now, is probably failing. It's probably doing a bad job. Actually, not failing, it's doing a bad job. That's probably one of my biggest fears, because not everything you're going to do is going to be successful, but my biggest fear is whenever I am leading a group of people or trying to make sure people are prepared for something and I just don't do a good job doing it and it just falls apart. Because if you try your best and it falls apart, you did your best. You did the best that you can do. You pick yourself up and try again. But it's when you don't do your best job and it just falls apart, then that's a different scenario. So I guess for me, it's probably one of my biggest fears is really doing a great job and not doing the best that I can do when it's an unknown situation. Hopefully that made sense.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. I think for me, mine goes back to that self-confidence conversation we had a few slides back of having the fear of what I have to say doesn't resonate, and then people may just turn off and not engage further in the conversation. And that's something that will happen. You're not always going to succeed the way that you initially set out in your mind, and coming to terms with that and being okay with that. I think that's one of the fears of any time you're standing up or working to influence the people around you. That is will be forever present for me, definitely.
Also, I will say I cannot see what question comes afterwards. So I hope these are all appropriate questions because if it pops up and it's a mess, we'll figure out who it was. Um, oh God. Um, Give us a real talk moment with your leadership journey. I'm I don't know if I would consider this a real talk. Actually, it probably is. Me as a person, I don't like going back and forth with people. Um, I find it to be a waste of time, but so I just really don't like going back and forth with people if I don't have to. And when it comes to self-advocacy, this was probably one of my greater moments. And this goes back to my third year of teaching. This was also my last year of teaching. So my third year of teaching, I was a new band director at a high school, and I walked into a program to where they were used to doing things a certain way. And so I was trying to implement some things and working with the students, talking to the parents. And we were coming up on a band competition. And I found out my middle school feeder, my middle school assistant director, and my color guard director, had made one of my students cry. And don't mess with my students like that. And it was over the fact of she was our guard soloist, but she was also a really good choir student. And the choir teacher and I had a great relationship. And so there was a competition to where she was not able to make it because she had like an all-state audition for a choir, and that's her priority. And so I had found out that she had a conversation with the assistant director and the guard person. They were like, oh, no, you can't do this, X, Y, and Z. And she was in tears. And so I had to call them in my office as grown adults and kind of defend my stance as to why we couldn't do that. And we didn't yell, but voices did have to get raised a little bit solely because the fact of at the end of the day, I'm the director, the buck stops with me, and you're not going to raise your voice in me in my office. So that was one of my, I guess, real talk moments, I guess you want to call it, to where you just sometimes have to stand up for yourself, but you also can't let people play in your face. So sometimes you just have to show people who they are, how they're acting, and show them who you really are. Because she ended up quitting like 2 weeks after that because she realized that she wasn't going to be able to walk over me. And we had a very successful marching band season that year. So
I think
that brought us joy.
I think quickly for me, my real talk moment really came during COVID. I had just transitioned, I think March 20th, I got promoted at my last job and became like supervisor. I had a team of 4 people that I was then supervising. And then 2 weeks later, everything shut down and we had to really navigate how do we show up to support students when students can't be there in person anyway. And that real talk was coming up with all these ideas and being like, we're going to implement this, you do that, you do that. And it became more of that dictatorship sort of thing of me saying like we got to do something and keep the momentum moving, and never thought to think of the change management component of we were changing everything that we were doing and had to adapt on the fly and think through really critically how things were going, and realizing that we were also people going through time where we were alone in our apartments and navigating that together. So understanding that as the leader, that wasn't necessarily about we need to produce and have that outcome, but really engage with the people around us and make sure everyone comes along for the journey. It's not just you telling people where to go. Thinking timing wise, Kadeem, do we want to like each take one and go through the rest of them quickly?
Because I just realized that I can actually see the question. So I was like, oh, I can actually like look through these. So I was trying to think which one. Oh, someone asked what our least favorite Mario Kart character was. I'm so sorry. Very quickly, it is Wario. Um, do with that what you will. Let me see. Let's pick this one for you, Darren, because I am curious.
Okay. Who do I look up to as a leader? I think that's a excellent question. And I think it honestly changes depending on the scenarios. I think there's constantly people that I look up to, from whether that be my coworkers, whether that be I think one of the mentors I had throughout my time as a active brother, and into my career as an adult, Melinda Matney, who's a sponsor of our chapter. Look up to, want to shout out Bong here. We've been friends since we were on council together in undergrad, and just seeing how he has excelled in supporting the organization and both fraternally and us as a friend group, as we have remained friends since then. So I think who I look
Period.
who I look up to definitely changes based on the context, but I think there's many people that I can think of, but those just name a few.
He's gonna get so excited because I was also gonna say Bob in this current moment, and
Let's
he's gonna get so
go.
excited. So I'm gonna talk about you last. Um, so I think for me, one of the people that I definitely have looked up to has definitely been Evan Thompson from past national president from the Zeta chapter. And I think for me, it was as a student, like watching him be one of our Southeast district, almost in Southwest, because I've been here for 4 years now. But I think watching Evan be a governor and kind of interacting with students on a regular basis and kind of seeing that in real time, and especially as someone who was so young within this organization as well, I think that really kind of spoke to me and how he was able to navigate so many different situations from being a governor to then going up the ladder through the national council as well and also just navigating really difficult times. He's always been super compassionate about the people he's interacted with, and has always taken time to show that humility and really get to know people as individuals. And also being from my home chapter and like seeing him as often as I did, it was really easy for me to kind of look up to him because I saw him so often. And so I think as a student, and even so now, Evan has definitely been one of the people that I look up to a lot. And just based off of his journey, and again, Carolina connection, you can't really beat that. Go Cox. And then Bong is one of them as well. And I'm not going to touch on you too much, Bong, because A, you're here, and then B, Darin already mentioned you as well. And a part of it also has to do with being such a young professional, being one of the youngest national presidents we've ever had, but it's also your ability to show up as yourself in every situation is just something that I wish I could do as good as you do, honestly. Because again, showing up authentically as yourself, especially as people of color, when you're the only one in the room, is very easy for you to shrink yourself, but you really never shrink yourself for other people. And so I think that is really admirable. And so that's great for you. And that's all I'm going to say because you're here and I don't need you to get too excited, sister. Um, what is another one? Let's talk about sometimes when you make a mistake.
I think I can chime in first. I think the first step is owning that you made a mistake. That's also one of the hardest parts of going back to that self-reflection piece that we talked about earlier is being able to reflect on it and be like, yeah, I messed up there. And owning that and admitting that takes a lot of courage to do, but it can also kickstart that like trust rebuilding process as we continue to showcase that, yes, I may be serving in this leadership capacity and I may not always do things correctly or I may not always have the right answer. But by admitting that I don't and acknowledging where I went wrong, can then work with the people around me to say how can I regain that trust and asking that of other individuals. I think that is a key part as well. Like you can't necessarily build trust with somebody if they don't want that trust to be rebuilt. So engaging the individuals that may have lost trust in you as a leader to see what are ways that you can grow as well is something seeking that feedback is a great way of starting the process at least.
And to kind of add on to that, once you start to seek that feedback and seek that engagement and like do that type of work, I think the next part is you have to then live out the feedback that you were given. Because we're now in a situation where now the way our society is shaped now, words are very cheap at this point. You can only say, I'm sorry. You can only say, okay, I'll try to do this. No, you actually have to implement the feedback that was given and showcase that. Not just when that person is in front of you, but consistently have some integrity about yourself. I think is going to be super important in building back that trust as well. I think to Darin's point, if you've lost the trust of somebody, you can't. If they tell you that, you really can't gain that back if someone doesn't want to rebuild that trust with you. But walking in the feedback that you've been giving and really accepting that and living that is also, I think, a great way to kind of build back that trust. Because again, words are cheap at this point. People can say, I'm sorry, oh, I didn't mean to, or I'm sorry, but that but will always get you in trouble every time. So you just need to own it and then just kind of walk in that feedback and really start living that out. Again, not just when the people who gave it to you are in the room, but all the time, because you never know when people are watching. Oh my God. So Those are really great questions. I was not prepared for that. I'm not going to hold you, but lovely questions. And then we're going to wrap it up here because as time is important, we don't want to keep y'all here forever. But thank y'all so much for showing up today and being a part of this presentation, and more importantly, being part of the National Month of Leadership and really thinking about how you can start your own leadership journeys. Because this type of work, the work that we're doing, this type of fellowship and being able to engage with one another, although it is over Zoom and Mentimeter, is super important, and it's what makes this work. Let me slow down my words. What makes this organization so special? This session alone is just one small piece of it. I encourage you to continue engaging with the other programming that's happening later on this month. We have live sessions, weekly reflection prompts, leadership and speaker highlights, weekly activities. There are so many other things that we're going to be offering this month. So please try to engage wherever you can, because again, once you start investing in your own journey, especially within this fraternity, you're going to get so many things out of it. And if you have the time to do it, build it into your schedule. Don't tell yourself, I don't have time to do this. You have the dates, you have the times, put it in your calendar and build around it. Because if it's something you truly care about, something you want to do, the first step is always the most important, just like when you're doing that 8 to 5 on that field. So if you really enjoyed it, invite somebody else to join us as well. Tell your friends, tell everybody. If we were terrible, please, you can give us feedback and let us know, but please make sure it's nice. Thank you.